Hi, thanks for tuning in to Love Life 2. This is the new season on positive gender dynamics, and I'm your host, Dr. Babe. Today's episode is called Woke, which is just slang for to have awoken, which is exactly what happened to me a few months ago when I stumbled upon some fascinating new information about men and women and how and why they interact with each other. So today I have with me Suzi Culbert. She just finished acting and singing in the production of Footloose at the Prospect Playhouse, right? Yeah. And you're a single mother, you're a career woman, you're lots of things. Yes. So you have a really important perspective to bring to the show as my female voice today.
I hope so.
Welcome.
I'll try. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And Craig-Anthony Jervis. Do you go by Craig-Anthony or mostly
Craig-Anthony is fine. That's how I'm popularly termed.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And you just transitioned into a new role as a television sales
That's correct.
representative, and you seem to be just emerging and evolving into that role quite nicely. I keep my eye on you and how you're shifting, because I know that you've had a big transition in your life.
Most definitely.
Which is always good to see a young man like yourself to step into his own.
Definitely, thank you.
So thanks for being on the show.
And thank you for having me.
So the two of you are actually also friends. I'm figuring we're going to feel at home here.
Yes, I hope so. We need a TV crew to get us together.
Yes,
we
are best friends that don't. Right.
Sorry,
so happy to be here.
Yes.
Well, I don't know best friends, but we're friends.
BFFs.
But speaking of home, I mean, I'm just blown away by this condo.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We're right here on 7 Mile Beach in Grand Cayman, courtesy of Cayman Luxury Retreats.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, it can't get any better than this.
It sure is beautiful in this room.
Yeah, it's a shame the cameras aren't facing that way.
Yeah, we'll be out there later enjoying the view, right? Yeah. But before we get started, let's just take a quick break. So I want everybody to just stay tuned, and we'll be right back with Love Life. So welcome back to Love Life 2. We're here with Suzi and Craig. So I did come up with something to jump us off in this conversation. I wanted to start with you, Craig. Kind of the whole season is called Positive Gender Dynamics.
Right. So
to you, what do you think positive masculinity means to you?
I think positive masculinity, as appreciated by me at this moment, I mean, we've tend to take an understanding of men being superheroes. The masculine man comes in the shape and form of this stalwart, shoulders back, chin down, wearing a cape, coming to the rescue of all that seems to be necessary. However, for me personally, I believe that comes with a certain level of prudence, politeness, gentlemanlikeness. Masculinity in itself, I think, though it is misconstrued at the moment, it has its roots in being that gentleman as expected.
How do you think it's being misconstrued?
Today, I think there's so many conceptions of what is gender correctness, and I think masculinity has lost its true tenor, so to speak. We see in today's world where we have men drawn across a cross-section of occupations or genres of life, that it's no longer a traditional sense or sentiment of man. The superhero that is termed as a man, right, with the shoulders back, chin down, is a bit watered down in today's parlance.
Okay, so I'm kind of interested what you think of what he just said. How would you sort of summarize that? This is a technique I use in therapy. So a little bit of therapy, pseudotherapy going on.
Okay, so I'm always very cautious when we start to talk about gender stereotypes, or even kind of reading into or trying to be or evolving into something. And I'm always really conscious myself of trying to avoid that and not paying attention to these things. So I get what you're saying, where you're seeing what a man should be, and now people are saying that you can also be all these other things, and nobody really knows what it is. I think that's actually a great thing. For me, I don't want to pay attention because I'm not feminine, masculine, positive or negative. I'm Suzie, right? And the more I can pay attention to what Suzie is, I will become all of these traits. And I think that in every person, man or woman, there are feminine and masculine traits which are positive and negative, and it's about embracing them. And I think when you're really true to that is when it's beautiful. That's when people respond in a better way. So I'm cautious of not reading into that
Putting
too
yourself
much.
into a box, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's important to understand them,
Right.
but not to conform to them or to try to be one or the other.
So you focus more on yourself as the individual and
Yes,
all
for
of the holistic qualities that you have, rather than some sort of divisive stereotype of...
Yeah, I think it's nice when you read something, you're like, oh yeah, I identify with that, but I don't want to read into that too much and be, I really like that I identify with, let me be more of that. I would just want to be what I am.
So what is more important to you? Like, what are your priorities in regards to your identity? Like, how do you identify yourself?
I try really hard to be true. That's when I feel, that's when I'm my happiest, when I feel that people respond best to me. And it's not about how people respond to me, right? I think also when you're true, you don't even think about how people are responding to you.
Beyond judgment of it, right?
Yeah, and
you're so confidently working on self.
Yeah, exactly.
That the judgment is beyond you, you know?
Yeah. And it's nice to have somebody look at you, and like when you called me to be on the episode and you said it was about female empowerment and things, and I was like, and you want me to do that? Like, I found it quite weird. But when I looked into it more, I understand why you would see that in me, but it's not something I've ever looked at in myself. So that's my thing, is about truth. Even sometimes like trying to be completely honest, which is hard. I think we often be quiet, right? So that's what I focus on, is truth, and from the truth everything else comes. The gratitude and happiness and positive femininity and all of those things come out.
So you might not sort of relate to that term that I'm putting out there of positive femininity, because you look at the bigger picture, but for you, maybe without it being a gendered issue, empowerment or just like you said, truth. What is that like for you to step into now? Is it something that you've come to recently?
Yes, for sure. Like in the last 4 years, everything that I've been working towards was about happiness and gratitude, and that was one really important thing that came out, was the truth aspect. I thought a lot about what you were saying on the episode, and I was thinking about as a woman, we spoke about my career. I'm a professional. I work alongside both men and women, and I think it's true to say in every career that I've had, I have seen that there have been more struggles for women than there have been for men. But I try not to focus on that on a daily basis. I try, for me, it's not about the struggles to overcome, it's about what I can pave the way for other women behind me by not focusing on it, not making that an issue.
Well, it's interesting for me, you know, I kind of came into it, even just, you know, like I said, this is a recent awakening that I've had. So beforehand, maybe last season, I was looking at it as being an assertive, empowered woman, almost defensively making my place in the world. And I didn't really see it at the time until more recently I came across this really cool stuff that I have been absorbing for a few months. And now I see that there's nothing wrong with being femininely feminine. Whereas before, I think I was much more comfortable with my masculine side. And it came out too in the photo shoot that we did, because you know, we did the feminine ones first and I was all twitchy and nervous, and then as soon as I got into the masculine clothes, I was just comfortable and relaxed, and it really shows me, you know, I have to make an effort to be femme and glam.
But do you though?
I do.
But so, do you feel like why do you feel like you have to do that, is my question.
Well, I mean, the reason why...
Could it be, Taylor, that the standards of being a feminine woman is so much higher than being a masculine man? As a woman, I feel like you have to do so much, and that's the standard of approval, so to speak, is so high. Your hair has to be perfect. Your makeup has to be perfect. Your body has to be perfect. You know what I mean? Now, could that be a contributing factor to why it was a bit difficult or uneasy for you to fall into the role, so to speak, of...
For me, I don't like spending all that time and all that effort doing it, but I think for some people they enjoy it more. They're just more comfortable with it, so the effort doesn't feel so much like effort.
Right.
But it's interesting. I really want to, you know, sort of answer your question, because I think that that's a good one and an important one for me to respond to. So why don't we take a break? It'll just be a short break, and we'll put a bookmark there and come right back, so stay tuned.
The vision of Have a Heart Cayman Islands is to bring heart health and happiness to children. Every cent raised by Have a Heart goes directly to the delivery of health care for these children. Without your support, these beautiful children might not get the surgeries they need to survive. Have a Heart partners with local and international organizations to subsidize and provide life-saving heart surgeries to children from around the world based on their financial need. We rely solely on donations and contributions to ensure we can keep mending these little hearts.
20 reasons to attend the International College of the Cayman Islands in 20 seconds.
Job promotion.
Night classes.
Challenging.
Affordable tuition.
Brilliant professors.
Business.
Friendly environment.
Accounting.
Finance.
Liberal arts.
Leadership. Broadcasting. Enthusiasm.
Nuclear.
Associate.
Bachelor's. Internship.
Diversity.
40-year history.
Hey, that's only 19 reasons.
We're internationally accredited.
Yes, cut.
Welcome back to Love Life 2. We're here with Suzie and Craig. So Suzie just posed a question that I've been pondering for the last minute. You want to repeat it?
You mentioned about being uncomfortable with your feminine side when you
right.
were posing and getting all girly, and you said that you need to get more comfortable with that side, and I asked, but do you though?
Right. Well, it depends on, I guess, asking why do I need to? I mean, it kind of sounds like it can be a superficial reason to do that, but I think if we go back to what is positive and what is negative masculinity or femininity, maybe that will answer the question as well. So for me, I've kind of been looking at or recognizing that there was or there is a way of looking at gender in a negative way that's harmful to us, mostly because of the way that our relationships have become very corrupted and unhealthy. I mean, you can see dating is chaotic these days. It's a disaster zone, right? Marriages are failing, and relationships are not they're not lasting as long, and they're not functioning as well. Right. So when we think about what is negative masculinity is kind of what maybe the feminists complain about, right? The more dominant, abusive, offensive tone of masculinity, or it could be termed the negative masculinity being more effeminate masculinity, right? So that I think
it depends on who you ask the question.
It depends, exactly.
Right.
So in the same way for femininity, I think negative femininity is a more masculine version of a woman who really steps into that defensive tone. Again, that sort of extreme feminist, which I'm thinking about over the next episodes as well. So I can't wait to get into all these topics this season.
Plug.
I know, but okay, so to answer your question, for me, it is important to step into that more traditional stereotype of femininity because we need to in order to function well together as men and women. It doesn't mean it has to be the only thing, right? We can have other elements. We can have a balance. It's important to have the balance, like we talked about last season, of masculinity and femininity in each of us. But if we reject one element of that, or if we don't see the utility in being truly feminine, then it harms our relationships, because we really are meant to come together as masculine men and feminine women in order to complement each other best.
So here, this is where I keep going back to truth. Because I think when you focus on what you should be or what you want to be or what makes sense for each of you to be is when you start to fake it, and it's not really true. Some of it might be true, but if you're focusing on the truth aspect, then it doesn't matter what needs to work together, because I think when everybody is being their complete true honest self, that's when people work together better, because the guards are down. And
I agree with that. It gives you a more natural laissez-faire, so to speak. However, I think that we do need meter rules. There needs to be some sort of an adjustment as to what is expected. And I'm not talking about a false expectation or a burden of an expectation. What is expected of a man and what is expected of a woman. If we must live in unison, we will have to have certain gender-specific regulation and gender-specific expectations.
How about if this is what's expected of each other, to respect each other and be kind to each other, regardless?
Most definitely.
So
but
if
even
that's
with that,
the only expectation, then it doesn't matter whether you're masculine or feminine.
But the problem is that socialization is what corrupts us, right?
Yep.
So there is, like, evolutionary psychology shows us, or the factual basis of how we function. But the problem is that socially we evolve much faster than we do biologically.
Yes.
So it's kind of like this constant catch-up race that we're in with ourselves as a race. So it makes things complicated. So all these social movements that have happened. I mean, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Suzie, was how do you think the sexual revolution affected females? And males too, right? Just the dynamic between them.
I just think it's been confusing.
How has it been confusing in your mind?
Because I think everybody's paying too much attention to what is being fed to them rather than what's inside. So they've been told that this is acceptable, and so therefore they'll pursue something that's acceptable that maybe wasn't acceptable before, and they're pursuing something that's not true to them. I think that we all make mistakes, right, and learn from them and stuff. But if you're not tapped into what's you, then you're more likely to make these mistakes and not even realize.
Yeah, and it takes a while sometimes. You know, we all mature at different rates, but some lessons we have to learn through experience. But I think the sexual revolution had a lot of positive impact because it helped to make people feel that they had a choice when before they didn't feel like they had a choice. But I think it's kind of gone too far. And that's where I'm coming from in this season, is that we need to get that pendulum to swing back to the middle. And sort of rein things in so that we can be more collaborative and have more of an even keel with both elements or all elements. But when you talk about truth as well, you know, some of the things that maybe you're thinking are faking it are just your weaknesses. And your weaknesses are your truth too. So like for me, my femininity is my weakness, and me putting effort into being more feminine doesn't mean I'm faking it. It just means I'm working at those limitations or those weaknesses. So I think, you know, you do have to determine that, and it takes a while to sort of assess, what am I really forcing and what am I just trying to improve? And that's probably a fine line.
That's fair,
and I also wanted to ask Craig, what did you think about just the current state of men and women and the dynamics? I know you kind of spoke about it in regards to positive masculinity, but you're single, right? I mean, you're in the dating world. So are you intentionally unattached? This came up last night.
That is correct.
Oh,
that would be a fair statement.
So
yes.
could you explain why? Like, what are your reasons for that?
Without going too deep into my personal life, I do believe that it is better for me to stay true to myself and to others and to continue to search and soul seek, as opposed to being caught up in every frivolous wind that passes. You asked a question previous about the advancement in gender roles, or the gender revolution you mentioned.
Yes.
Right? I think with the proliferation of gender ideals, or the proliferation of gender rights, where you believe you can do as you please, and that is the current state of things, where man, woman, or in between feels nowadays that they can do as they please, be what they want. A man can do things that previously a man would never think of doing, and vice versa with women. I think with that current status quo, we've lost ourselves, so to speak. We've lost our gender identities. We can't lose our sex because we're either born male, female, or in some anomalous cases, in between. Right? But I think now it's a bit confusing.
That's a whole controversy in and of itself.
Right, in itself. And I hate to be the devil and his advocate, but I think we've gotten to a place now where everything is a bit misconstrued, right? There's no definitive man or definitive woman. I think that's where we've gone wrong. I'm not suggesting as if we need to be where we were in years of past, where there's a strict expectation of you're a man, you are a hardback gorilla, and that you must be strong, you must be loud, and you must be ruthless. That's not what I'm trying to project. However, I do agree that we do need some semblance of a reference point, right? Where men can resort to, just for reference, you know, just to keep you as a guidepost on track as a man, right? Because the way this world was created, there's need for men in a gender role, and there's need for women in a gender role. The way it is now, where there's a big melting pot of confusion, I think this is where we're losing relationships, this is where we're losing families, this is where we have chaotic societies.
Exactly.
Right? So having a role model, so to speak, of positive masculinity and femininity is what will give us that good guide, you know, to a more sustainable interaction. Right? Now, I agree with Suzie, where you must be yourself, right? And being yourself is of paramount importance. Authenticity, right. However, with being yourself, and I mean, self comes with a lot of rubrics. I mean, a lot of different ins and outs to self, so to speak. But we must have some sort of a guide to adjust ourself into self, right? If we have nothing to measure ourselves against, right? If we have no starting place, there can be no end. Right? So for us to help to redefine, or just to define, what it is to be a masculine man, right, and sufficiently being a feminine woman, right, will go a long way in helping this greater world around us to kind of regain some sort of balance. you know.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. I think that you've brought us to the end of the show with a very clear and cohesive point that I was trying to make. Because I agree with you. I think that we've diluted a lot of issues and lost our identities. So coming back to this clear focus can be helpful without losing our truths. So I really appreciate both of you being here today.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you again soon and that the two of you get to spend more time together.
I mean, it could come in the form of brunch on a Sunday, birthdays, bringing together an entire set and crew together, you know, overlooking the beautiful 7 Mile Beach. Those are the occasions that we'll have to spend some time together. But thank you very much, Taylor.
Yeah, thank
it's
you.
a pleasure.
Welcome. And thank you all for joining us on Love Life 2.